The carnations cost $6.98. They always did. Giant Eagle set them out Thursday nights in white plastic buckets by the floral counter, and by 8:40 Friday morning, they had opened just enough to look like they meant something. I had bought them every Friday for 3 years. In 46 years, Gil never once bought me flowers. I thought it was funny. He thought it was unfair. So this was a joke I was still telling to a man who could not hear the punchline. Lane 4, Ruth Ann was on the register, and we talked about her son's transmission while she scanned. I put my card in the reader. I thought about it. Then it said, declined. The machine's been slow all week, Ruth Ann said, which was kind of her. I pulled the card out and put it back in. Declined. There is a particular silence behind you in a grocery line when you are 74 and your card does not work. I have heard it in hospital corridors too. It is the sound of people deciding something about you. I want to be clear about what I did next, because it is the only part of this story I got right the first time. I did not apologize. I did not put the flowers back. I opened my wallet and took out a $10 bill. I have carried cash since 1971. I was 20. A nurse's aide on nights, and a woman came into our emergency room with 2 children and no way to get home. I gave her $11 out of my purse. I have not left my house without cash since. Habits outlive their reasons. Keep it, I said. I picked up the carnations and walked out through the automatic doors. My hands were steady the whole way. They started in the car. Here is the part I need you to notice, because later it mattered more than anything else I did that day. I did not call my daughter. I called the bank. The woman asked me 3 security questions. My mother's maiden name, the street I grew up on, the last 4 of my social. I answered all 3 without pausing, which I mention only because within a month a courthouse document would suggest I could not. I heard her typing. Mrs. Hollis, I'm showing a hold placed on this account by an authorized party. An authorized party? Yes, ma'am. Which party? There was a silence on that line I have thought about many times since. It was not a technical silence. She knew. She was sitting somewhere under fluorescent lights, deciding how to say it. I'm not able to disclose that over the phone, ma'am. I thanked her. 41 years of nursing teaches you to thank people at moments when thanking makes no sense. A man codes at 3 in the morning, and you turn to the respiratory tech and say thank you, because the alternative is a sound you cannot take back. I sat with the carnations on the passenger seat and turned one word over and over. Authorized. Then I drove to the cemetery, because it was Friday. Gil is in the 3rd row at St. Bridget's. Under a maple that drops seed pods on him every May, the stone says Hollis, then his name, then 1948 to 2022, then husband. A word he chose himself with his left hand, because the stroke had taken the right one, and most of his words, he lived 14 months after it. Claire did the days. I want that on the record early, because I am going to tell you a great many things about my daughter, and I would like this to be the first. Claire did the days. I was at the hospital. I was still working then. And after I retired, I went in 4 mornings a week. Anyway, I still teach a clinical section at the community college twice a month. Claire was at the house. Teddy called on Sundays from Oregon. Every Friday for 3 years, I have set flowers down and told Gil the week. Ruth Ann's son, the Gutters, the Steelers. That morning, I put the carnations in the holder, straightened them, and sat down on the grass with my back against the stone, the way I do. And I didn't tell him anything. Then I walked back to the lot and called my daughter. She picked up on the second ring. She always does. Hey, Mom. My card was declined at the grocery store. A pause, not a surprised pause, a prepared one. I have sat with enough families in enough waiting rooms to know the difference between hearing news and delivering a rehearsed moment. Mom, we talked about this. We did not, in February, at the kitchen table. You agreed it would be simpler. Claire, I have never in my life agreed to be given an allowance. And then she said it. In the softest voice she owns, the one she uses on her son after a bad day. That's okay. It's okay if you don't remember. That was the first time anyone had ever used my own memory against me. I want to tell you I recognized it for what it was. I didn't. I sat in that parking lot for 11 minutes trying to remember. February. The branch on Marlin Street opens at 9. I was there at 10:15, which is how long it took me to drive home, sit at my own kitchen table without taking off my coat, and decide that I was not going to spend the weekend wondering. Rosalind Okafor has run that branch for 16 years. She has a photograph of her mother on the credenza behind her desk, taken in Lagos, and a habit of pouring you water before you ask for it. She poured the water, then she pulled up my accounts. I watched her face while she read. I have spent my working life watching people read screens, and there is a moment you can time it when a person stops scanning and starts confirming. Roz looked for 8 seconds. Then she picked up her phone. Marcus, come down and bring the exploitation checklist, I said. What, Mrs. Hollis? I'd rather explain it once, with him here. Marcus Steele is somewhere north of 50 and built like a man who used to carry things for a living. He shook my hand, sat down, and did not tell me it was going to be all right, which I appreciated more than I can say. He set out papers in a row across her desk like a man laying tile. I'm going to give you 22 months in order, he said. Stop me when you want. Don't stop for me. Go. June of last year, your online banking credentials were reset from a device that had not previously accessed the account. That's my daughter. She came over on a Sunday and put the app on my phone. I couldn't get the fingerprint thing to work. September. A secondary contact was added to the account. Claire Braddock. I said nothing. November 8th. Paperless billing was enabled on all 3 products. Statements stopped going out by mail. I noticed that, and I had. I remember standing at the mailbox in December thinking the bank had gotten cheap. November 22nd, a change of address request was filed with the Postal Service, mail forwarding, permanent. Forwarding where? He turned a page toward me so I could read the address myself. 940 Farrell Road, my daughter's house. My grandchildren's basketball hoop is in that driveway. January, transaction alerts were redirected to a different mobile number. Hers, yes, ma'am. March, daily withdrawal limits were reduced. $300. I laughed. It came out wrong. And Roz reached over and moved the water glass an inch closer to me, which was the kindest thing anyone did for me that week. I want you to understand what I was feeling in that chair, because it was not yet grief. It was something closer to what I used to feel reading a chart at shift change that cold. Orderly clicking as separate items stop being separate. A woman comes in 3 times in 5 weeks, once for a fall, once for dehydration, once for a wrist. No single visit means anything. The pattern means everything. 22 months, 6 steps. Not one of them is a theft. Mr. Deal, I said. None of that is legal without my signature. He did not answer right away. He picked up a tablet, turned it around, and set it down in front of me. Mrs. Hollis, the signature isn't forged. It's yours. I have been told a great many things across a great many desks. My husband's prognosis, My mother's biopsy. I know how to receive information. I sat there and looked at my own handwriting. I have made the same way since Catholic school. The H with the tail. I could pick out of 100, and I could not make my mouth work. Every single thing your daughter did is legal, Marcus said. Then what am I doing in this room? You're finding out how it happened. That's a different question from whether you can stop it. November 14th. I had water on for pasta. Claire came in the side door with her coat still zipped and a manila folder under her arm. She had come straight from work, and she does 11-hour days. Medicare open enrollment closes at 5. Mom, and the hospital needs the HIPAA forms too. Just sign where the flags are. There were little colored tabs down the right edge, the kind you buy in a strip. She held the folder open and turned pages for me while I signed. And she talked about Nora's science fair, about Doug's truck, and the water was climbing the sides of the pot. And I kept one ear on it the whole time. 9 signatures, 6 minutes. The 7th page was a durable power of attorney, effective immediately. Not springing, not conditional on a physician's finding. Immediate meaning, the moment the ink dried, my daughter could do anything with my money that I could do, and did not have to tell me she was doing it. I never read it. I never even turned it over. I heard the pot start to hiss, and I signed where the flag was. I had spent 4 decades teaching student nurses one rule: you do not sign what you have not read, because your signature is the last thing standing between a patient and a mistake. I broke my own rule for a pot of boiling water. Friday, 11:40. The notary sat behind the counter at the UPS store on Route 30 between the packing tape and a rack of greeting cards. Revocation of power of attorney, 1 page. She stamped it, signed the log, and charged me $15. $15 to undo 6 minutes. I carried it out to the car and got in and sat with the paper on the steering wheel. And I cried for 4 minutes. I know it was 4 because the parking meter was counting down in front of me, and I watched it go from 0:11 to 0:07. I want to say something about those 4 minutes. I was not crying because of what she had done. I had not gotten there yet. I was crying because for 22 months, my daughter had been carrying a plan alone, and it had never once occurred to her to say it out loud to my face. And that meant she had decided something about me a long time before that Friday, and I had been living inside her decision without knowing. Then the meter hit 0, and I wiped my face with a fast food napkin and drove to the next thing. Friday, 2 p.m. Credit freezes, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, free, federal law, since 2018. It took 31 minutes at my own kitchen table with a legal pad and the cordless phone. And when it was done, nobody on this earth could open a line of credit in my name, not a stranger in another state, not a person who had my social security number written in a notebook, not anyone. Write that down if you are listening to this. It costs nothing and it takes half an hour. Friday, 4:16 p.m. The post office on 6th. I asked them to cancel the mail forwarding order. The clerk pulled it up, and I watched him read it. And then he asked the question they are supposed to ask. "Ma'am, do you know who filed this? My daughter." He nodded. That was all. He did not look surprised. He did not look sorry for me. He just nodded the way you nod at a thing you have heard across that counter more times than you would want to say out loud, and he printed me a confirmation. 22 months of my mail had gone to Farrell Road, bank statements, the letter from the credit union about the CD, whatever the bank had sent me in November, confirming an address change, which they do send, which I had never seen, Saturday, 9:00 a.m. Keystone Ridge Federal Credit Union, 20 minutes out past the reservoir. In a strip mall next to a dentist, new checking, new savings, fresh account numbers, a new debit card, and a security passphrase I made up, standing at the counter and told to no one. Nobody in my family knows the name of that credit union, not my son in Oregon, not my daughter. To this day, Monday, 8:30 a.m. Yolanda Pierce, elder law, 3 rooms above an insurance office on Beaumont, and a waiting room with a sofa low enough that older clients have trouble getting out of it, which she has apologized for and never replaced because, she says, everyone remembers her office. Understand what I was doing when I sat down across from her. I did not call Ed Lavery, who wrote our wills in '94 and had Gill's whiskey at our 40th anniversary. Ed is a good man, and Ed has known my daughter since she was in braces. I hired my own lawyer, mine, not the family's. If you take one thing from this story, take that. When a family starts making decisions about a person, that person needs someone in the room who is paid to be on one side only. Monday, 300 p.m. 7 certified letters, return receipt requested, at the counter, with the little green cards you sign and get back in the mail. The bank, the credit union, the 2 card issuers, the retirement plan, Social Security, Medicare, revocation of POA. Effective immediately, notarized copy. Enclosed, $19 and change in postage. I saved every green card. I still have them in a rubber band in the drawer under the phone. Marcus Deal called me Monday at 5:40. Mrs. Hollis, I have to tell you something, and I need you to hear the whole sentence before you react. I stood in my kitchen with my hand flat on the counter. 41 years of hearing that sentence structure, nothing good has ever followed it. We filed a suspicious activity report. On my daughter. On the account. Her name is in it. Can you withdraw it? No, ma'am. It's a federal filing. It goes to FinCEN. It's done. Mr. Deal. And even if I could, he stopped and started again, slower. Mrs. Hollis, I wouldn't. I did not say anything for a while. He waited. He did not fill the silence. And I have thought since that this was a professional courtesy of the highest order. I had spent 3 days taking my life back, one form at a time. And in one phone call, I understood that I had also started something I could not call off. My daughter was now a name inside a federal document, and I had put her there. Wednesday afternoon. I was carrying in the recycling bin when a young man came up the walk in a navy polo shirt with a company logo on the chest. He could not have been 25. He held an envelope in both hands, the way you hold something you have been told not to bend. Marianne Hollis, yes, you've been served, he said it kindly. That is the part I did not expect. He said it the way you would tell someone their headlight was out. I stood in my own driveway with a recycling bin at my feet and read the caption line, In re Marianne. T. Hollis, an alleged incapacitated person, petition for adjudication of incapacity and appointment of guardian of the person and estate. Orphans Court Division, County of New Cambria, petitioner Claire H. Braddock, daughter, filed 8 days earlier. 8 days? She had filed it 8 days before I ever knew, which meant it had been sitting in a clerk's drawer in a building I drove past on my way to the dentist while I was standing at the post office counter saying my daughter to a man who nodded. Hearing date 20 days out. I want to tell you what a guardianship petition actually asks a court to do, because I did not fully know either. And I had spent my working life inside a system that touches this. It asks a judge to find that a person can no longer make decisions, not money decisions, decisions where you live, what treatment you accept or refuse, whether you may drive, sign, travel, or say no. If it is granted in full, someone else does all of it for you, and you do not get a vote, and getting it undone is harder than stopping it in the first place. There was a medical evaluation attached, signed by Ellis Fontaine, MD, my own family doctor, 21 years, dated March 3rd. I turned the page. The document began at page 2. I looked at the bottom right corner where the numbering sits, and I turned it over, and I looked at the back, and I went through the whole packet twice, standing there in the wind. There was no page 1. Page 2 read patient presented, accompanied by adult daughter, who reports increasing forgetfulness, missed appointments, and difficulty managing correspondence. That was the whole of it. 9 words of my daughter's account, entered as clinical history, submitted to a court. And then I remembered the appointment, March 3rd. Claire drove. She had said it was just the annual, that she had a half day anyway, and no sense in me parking in that garage. She sat in the waiting room with her phone. Dr. Fontaine asked me to remember 3 words and repeat them back later. He put a blank circle in front of me and asked me to draw a clock face, reading 11:10. He asked me to count backward from 100 by 7s. I did all of it. I remember thinking it was a nice change of pace from a blood pressure cuff. I have administered that screening. I have watched residents administer it badly. I sat in that chair and did not recognize it, because it never once occurred to me that anyone in the room was measuring me. I got the 3 words. I know I got the 3 words. But the page with the number on it was not in the envelope. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a spiral notebook and tried to build February. Not February in general. The specific Friday she meant, the kitchen table, the conversation where I supposedly agreed to be given an allowance. I wrote down what I could place. A dentist appointment on the 11th. Nora's science fair, which was a Thursday, snow the week of the 20th. Because I remember Alvin next door doing my walk before I was up. I could not find it. I could not find the conversation, and I could not prove it hadn't happened. And those are 2 different failures, and I could feel the difference between them. I got up to get water. I stood in the middle of my own kitchen. A room I have cooked in since 1979, a room where I know the drawer with the church keys and the one that sticks, and I could not remember what I had come in for. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. It has happened to every person listening to this. It has happened to me 1,000 times in my life, but it had never once happened to me while a court document sat on my table with my name on it. I sat down on the kitchen floor with my back against the refrigerator, in the exact place where Gil went down 3 years ago, and I stayed there a long time. I want to be honest with you, because there is no point telling this story if I lie in the middle of it. Sitting on that floor, I was not afraid of my daughter. I was afraid she was right. So at 6 in the morning, I did the only thing 41 years had taught me to do with a frightening symptom. I stopped guessing. I made an appointment. I drove myself. I paid for it myself. And I did not tell a single person in my family. Dr. Priya Raghunathan's office is on the 4th floor of the Medical Arts Building, and the elevator has a sign asking you not to lean on the doors. She is maybe 40. She listened to my whole reason for coming without writing anything down, which I noticed and respected. I want the full MOCA, I said. Not the 6 item, the full 30. And I want to see the score before anyone else does. That's your right regardless. I know it's my right. I'm telling you, I intend to use it. She almost smiled. Understood. Then she opened my chart and started down the medication list, the way you do. And I was still arranging myself in the chair when she stopped. She read a line twice, then she looked up. You're on oxybutynin and you're taking diphenhydramine nightly. I'm on what? Oxybutynin. Bladder. I'm not on anything for my bladder. She turned the screen toward me. There it was. Started 14 months ago. A urology consult. I went to exactly once for something that resolved on its own. In a building I have not been back to since. And the diphenhydramine, she said, nightly, per your daughter's note in the pharmacy record. I had to think about it. And then I did think about it. And my stomach went cold in a way I have felt maybe 4 times in my life. It's just Benadryl, Mom. She had said it standing at my counter. I had been sleeping badly since Gil. She said it the way you'd offer someone a cough drop. Let me explain what my daughter had done, and let me explain it the way it actually happened, because it was not one decision. It never is. 14 months ago, she simplified my medications. That is the word she used. She moved me off the neighborhood pharmacy, where a man named Walt had filled my prescriptions since 1996, and would say this one with food. Marianne and on to the hospital system's mail order service. 90-day supply, everything arrives together. And she signed me up for the bubble packs. If you have not seen one, it is a plastic card with sealed blisters. 4 across for morning, noon, evening, bedtime, 30 days down. You push the pill through the foil and swallow it. It is genuinely a good product. Adherence goes up. Nurses recommend them. I have recommended them. There are no bottles. There are no labels to read. No inserts folded 8 ways. No orange caps lining up on a windowsill where a woman might one day stand and think, when did that one start? Somewhere in the consolidation, the urology prescription got swept in. Nobody was malicious about it. A system pulled an active order, and a system filled it. And Claire added the Benadryl herself, because I was not sleeping, and because she loved me, and because it is sold in a plastic tub at the grocery store next to the vitamins. Both of those drugs are on the Beers criteria. That is a published list. Every nursing student in this country is handed it of medications that should generally be avoided in adults over 65. Both are anticholinergic. Their burden is cumulative. You know what cumulative anticholinergic burden looks like from the outside. It looks like a woman who forgets appointments, who cannot manage her correspondence, who is increasingly forgetful. Dr. Raghunathan set the tablet down. Who packs your pills? My daughter. Do you ever see the bottles? I sat there for 7 seconds. I counted them afterward. Driving home, the way you replay a thing. There aren't any bottles. I scored 28 out of 30 on the full assessment that morning. I lost a point on delayed recall and a point on serial 7s. Her note read, mild cognitive fog, likely medication-induced anticholinergic burden, no evidence of neurodegenerative processes. For 41 years, I caught other people's medication errors. Doctors called me at home to double-check dosages. I missed my own because it arrived in a package I never had to read. My daughter did not invent my confusion. She ordered it, sealed it in plastic, and delivered it to my kitchen counter every 90 days. And then she wrote it down as evidence. The orphans' court is on the 2nd floor of the county building, and there is a bench in the hallway outside the filing window with a crack down the middle of the wood. I went to file my objection. Yolanda had prepared it. I wanted to hand it across the counter myself. There was a woman on the bench holding a paper grocery bag on her lap with both arms. The way you hold something on a bus. Dorothy Kelso, 83. She told me her whole name and then told me to call her Dot. 2 years ago, her daughter petitioned. Dot did not get a lawyer in time. She said she thought you got one, the way you do in the movies. And by the time she understood that you have to go find one and pay for one, the hearing had come. It took 9 minutes. She comes on the 15th of every month to ask about her file. The house on Pine Grove sold last spring. She has to request $40. She looked at me for a while. You still drove yourself here, she said. Hold on to that. Alvin Pettigrew came over on a Thursday with 2 cans of ginger ale, one for each of us, which is how he has knocked on my door for 30 years. He sat on the porch and did not ask how I was. I heard at the barber's, he said. Small town. Alvin sat on the orphan's court bench for 19 years. He is 79 now and walks with a cane he does not need. 12 years ago, he said, I granted a petition I should have denied. I waited. Son filed. Father had no counsel. It took me 11 minutes, and I remember thinking I was being efficient. He turned the can around in his hands. He died in a facility outside Latrobe 16 months later. I never learned whether he understood where he was. Alvin, I'm not telling you for absolution. Marianne, I'm telling you so you know why I'm going to be useful to you and why you shouldn't thank me for it. Odie Marsh has been my friend since 1983. Her son. Bernie drove her to the diner on Route 30 and then sat 4 booths down with the sports section and let us alone. I told her some of it. Not all. Bernie asks, she said. Every single time. Last spring, he said, Ma, I think it's time to stop driving at night. I said, not yet. He said, all right, we'll talk about it next month. She turned her coffee cup a quarter turn. He asked me 3 months in a row. In the 3rd month, I handed him the keys myself. Then she reached over and put her hand flat on the table next to mine, not on top of it. He never took them. Mayor, he waited until I gave them. Doug came Saturday. My son-in-law is a journeyman electrician and a quiet man, and he sat on my porch for 40 minutes and did not say anything. I let him. 41 years of nursing teaches you that the people with the most to say take the longest to start. Finally, he took a folded stack of printouts out of his jacket. I'm not doing this to hurt her, he said. I'm doing it because she stopped sleeping. There were 2 things in that stack. The first was an email chain with Cedar Ridge Senior Living, an $18,000 deposit paid in March to hold a 1-bedroom unit. The internal note read, Hollis, M. Deposit hold. Family covering. March. 2 months before she filed. 2 months before I knew anything at all. The second was 11 pages, printed single-spaced. It was a timeline. My daughter's dated entries going back 22 months, 42M, called Re-Gutters, asked the same question twice. 617M, did not recall the Delaney funeral. 98 missed dental, second time. 11 pages of me. She's been keeping that at the kitchen table, Doug said. Since your birthday. Nora came after school on Monday, with her backpack still on. 12 years old, and she puts her things down like a person entering a courtroom. She set a graph paper notebook on my kitchen table. It's for science. We have to record observations for 8 weeks. What did you observe, sweetheart? Mom. I opened it. She had ruled 2 columns down every page with a straight edge. The left column every time her mother said I had forgotten something. Date, time, exact words. The right column headed checked. Grandma forgot Sam's game. I called her. She knew. She said 4:30 at Fillmore, correct? Grandma forgot the church thing. She had it on the calendar, correct? Grandma forgot my dentist. She did forget, not correct. 14 entries, 2 of them held. 14 times, Nora said. 2. I could not speak. She stood there with her backpack on and waited. And then she said the thing I will hear in my head until the day I die. You help me with my math every Tuesday. You've never gotten one wrong, Yolanda called at 9 that night. She filed for emergency temporary guardianship this afternoon. I sat down. Explain it to me like I'm not a nurse. It's a shorter, faster track. It's meant for genuine crises, a person wandering, a person about to be defrauded. If a judge grants it, it takes effect immediately, before the main hearing, before you ever stand in that courtroom. For how long? Up to 72 hours extendable. And Marianne, once someone is under a temporary order, the full hearing tends to go differently. Judges are human. Momentum is real. When the emergency review is in 48 hours. I stood in my kitchen and looked at 3 things on that table: Doug's 11 pages, Nora's graph paper, and my own spiral notebook, open to the page where I had been trying to build February. 3 women in my family were keeping notebooks that spring. My daughter kept one to prove I was disappearing. My granddaughter kept one to prove I wasn't. And I kept one because I had finally learned what my daughter learned 20 years ago in a hospital hallway. If you don't write it down, it never happened. Mediation. Room 3 is on the 2nd floor of the county building. Particle board table, 4 chairs, 1 window that looks at the parking deck. There is a water pitcher nobody touches. 8:40 in the morning, me and Yolanda on one side. My daughter and her attorney on the other hand. Doug and Nora sat on the bench in the hallway, the one with the crack down the wood. Nobody raised their voice in that room. I want that to be understood. Everything that happened at the volume of 2 women discussing a grocery list. Yolanda set down a single sheet. This is page 1 of the March 3rd evaluation. It was not included in the petition. Claire looked at it and did not pick it up. Montreal Cognitive Assessment 2730, and below it, in Ellis Fontaine's handwriting, the line he had written the same day. My daughter drove me home talking about Nora's science fair. No basis at this time for a finding of incapacity. You didn't submit a false document, Claire, I said. You submitted half of a true one. I want you to understand that I know the difference, she said. I didn't have page 1. I believe you. You had a folder from a hospital system you work inside, and you took what was in it, and you did not go looking for what was missing. That is its own kind of answer. I put the bubble pack on the table, 90 days, 4 rows across, sealed in plastic. Beside it, Dr. Raghunathan's report. Oxybutynin, diphenhydramine, both are anticholinergic, both on the Beers list, 14 months. Claire looked at that plastic card for a long time, longer than she had looked at anything else in the room. It was for your sleep. I know it was, and I meant it. That is the part I need you to hear. I meant it. You didn't find my confusion, Claire. You mailed it to me, every 90 days, and then you wrote it down. Yolanda took over. 3 questions, flat, no emphasis. Did your mother ask you to change her mailing address? No. Did she ask you to have her mail forwarded to your home? No. Did she ask you to place an $18,000 deposit at Cedar Ridge Senior Living in March? Claire's head turned toward the door. There is a narrow glass panel in it, and Doug was on the other side of that glass, and he did not look away. Her attorney put a hand on her arm. She moved it off. No, she said. She didn't. I pushed the folder to the side of the table. All of it. The report, the page, the plastic card. I'm going to stop being a witness for a minute and be your mother. Yolanda shifted. I did not look at her. Claire, When did I stop being a person to you? She did not answer for a while. When she did, her voice came apart in the middle of it. When Dad fell, she reached into her bag. I thought it was more paper, more entries, more dates. 11 pages becoming 20. It was a notebook, black cover, corners soft. I kept one on Dad too, she said. 14 months. I wrote down every word he lost. She set it on the table but did not open it. You didn't see it because you were at the hospital being useful, and I was at the house being the only one there. Teddy called on Sundays. You came home at 9 and went to bed. She was not crying. That was somehow worse. Nobody ever asked me how I was doing. Not once in 14 months. I have received bad news in 100 rooms. I have never once been the reason for it. Then she took out an envelope, already opened. The flap torn rough, the way you open something in a car. I got tested in October. The room stopped. I'm 47 and I've been forgetting things, names, whether I locked the door. I ran a discharge meeting in August and I could not remember the patient's diagnosis with the chart open in front of me. She put her hand flat on the envelope. I got tested and I haven't told Doug, and I haven't told anyone. Claire, I wasn't building a case against you, Mom. Her voice went very quiet. I was building a plan for myself, and then I put your name on it because I couldn't stand to put mine. The door opened. Nora came in with her backpack on. Her father was behind her saying her name in the hallway, and she came in anyway, and she set the graph paper notebook down on the table exactly in the space between her mother and me. 14 times, she said. Twice. Claire looked at her daughter's handwriting, at the ruled columns, at the straight edge lines, and Nora, 12 years old, in a room with 2 lawyers and a court file, said the only other thing she came to say. Mom, you're doing to Grandma what you're scared of. Claire's attorney asked for a recess. They were gone in 40 minutes. Yolanda and I did not talk. I stood at the window and watched a man on the 3rd level of the parking deck try 3 times to back into a space. When they came back, the attorney spoke to the mediator, and the mediator wrote, and it was done in under 4 minutes. Both petitions were withdrawn. The emergency application and the full guardianship action. It is on the docket. Case number, date, disposition. My daughter's name is on it, and it does not come off. And anyone with a library card and 20 minutes can find it. That is what happened in Mediation Room 3. Nobody shouted. Nobody won. Here is what withdrawing a petition does not do. Marcus Deal told me over the phone, in the same voice he had used for everything else. The SAR stands. It went to FinCEN in May. That's not yours to take back, and it never was. Adult Protective Services opened a file. It stayed open 18 months. Twice a caseworker came to my house and sat in my living room and asked me questions in a kind voice. And both times I answered honestly, and both times I hated it. And then the thing I did not see coming. Claire had arranged the March 3rd evaluation through the hospital system. She had pulled the folder through the hospital system. She was a discharge case manager inside that system, and she had used it on a member of her own family. Human Resources does not care about mediation rooms. She was moved off case management. Her certification was suspended for 24 months. They put her in billing on the 2nd floor. No patients, no families, no discharge plans. She lost 1/3 of her income. I did not do that to her. I want to be very clear about that. But I also did not stop it. And I could have written a letter, and I chose not to. That was my decision. And I have made my peace with it. The county solicitor's office called in August. A woman asked whether I wished to pursue charges. Financial exploitation of an older adult is a felony in Pennsylvania. I had thought about what I would say for 6 weeks. For 22 months, my daughter made every decision for me. Today, I'm going to make one for her. I'm declining to prosecute. And I want it on the record that this is my decision, not her luck. Yolanda rebuilt everything that fell. The house went into a revocable living trust. I am the sole trustee. If I ever cannot serve, that determination requires 2 independent physicians, not one, not a family member's account of what she has observed at the kitchen table. Financial authority then passes to a licensed fiduciary, a professional, a stranger, paid, bonded, accountable to a court, not to a beneficiary, not to my son in Oregon, not to my daughter. Claire is not disinherited. She inherits exactly what she would have inherited on the day she was born. I told her that myself, in my kitchen, standing up. You're still my daughter. You're just not my power of attorney anymore. 9 months later, I stood in the reading room of the New Cambria Public Library in front of a flip chart. 34 people, most of them past 65. Roz Okafor and Marcus Steele sat in the back row on folding chairs. Front row, center, in a cardigan the color of oatmeal. Dot Kelso. I wrote 7 lines. 1. Always carry cash. Because a card can be shut off by someone who loves you, and you will still want to walk out of that store with your head up. 2. Never give anyone your passwords, not even your own child. It is not distrust. It is arithmetic. Access, once given, does not announce what it becomes. 3. Never sign anything while you are in a hurry. 9 signatures, 6 minutes, a pot on the stove. That is all it takes. 4. Read the labels on your own medication. If there are no bottles, ask why. Convenience is not always a gift. Sometimes it is a door with no handle on your side. 5. Freeze your credit today. It is free and it takes half an hour. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. Write those 3 names down before you leave this room. 6. Hire your own attorney, not the family's, not the one who buried your husband, yours. 7. Ask to see page 1 of everything, always. The half of a document you are not shown is the half that decides. Then I put the marker down and said the 8th line, which was not on the chart. And if you're the adult child in this room, ask, don't decide, ask 3 times if you have to, then wait for the keys. A year after the carnations were declined, it was Friday, and I was at Giant Eagle at 8:40 in the morning. 7:29 now. Inflation got the flowers too. I put my card in the reader. It thought about it for a second. The way it does. Approved. Claire was in the next aisle with a basket. We have shopped together on Fridays for 4 months. She reached for her wallet. Mom, let me. No. She stopped. She did not argue. She stood there with her hand halfway to her purse. And then she asked, do you want me to? I smiled at my daughter. Not today, but thank you for asking. Then I reached back into the bucket and took a second bunch. 1 for Gil and 1 for the kitchen table, because I have been buying flowers for a dead man every Friday for 4 years, and not once for the woman still standing in the aisle. Love without respect eventually becomes control. But love that asks, love that waits for the keys that one becomes family again. If someone came to mind while you were listening, a mother, a father, or the face you saw in the mirror this morning, tell me in the comments, just their first name. I read everyone. And if you want more stories about the quiet dignity of getting older, subscribe. There's someone here every week who needs to hear that they're still the one who decides.